How did a game as simple as Vampire Survivors take the world by storm? It's a twin-stick shooter without the shooting. Yes, your character is attacking the onslaught of enemies marching towards you, but you have no direct control over their attacks. You can only move and choose what weapon or item to acquire or upgrade next. Its simplistic pixelated visuals and horror-themed motif don't exactly scream, "I must play this." And sure, the music is great, but every indie game has great music these days. The price is affordable at around $5, and that's what made me give the game a chance when my friend Andrew recommended it to me back in early 2022. A couple weeks later, I was hooked, gifting the game to everyone on my friends list. So what's the appeal? It's how difficult it is to survive 30 minutes. The hordes increase in size and ferocity as the seconds tick away. Through playing the game and hitting specific milestones, new weapons, characters, and stages are unlocked, as well as earning enough gold to buy upgrades in the power-up shop. Eventually, through enough knowledge and the act of attrition, survival is guaranteed. But what keeps a player going until they reach that point or beyond? Let's briefly sidestep to the question of beyond, because that was a legitimate concern in approaching this game for a critique. When I first played Vampire Survivors in early access, it felt like a simple arcade game. How long can you last, and how much damage can you rack up? Since then, the game has undergone a slew of updates, and one of those updates added a final boss and a credit screen. There we go, a definitive endpoint, a goal for the critique. Now we can return to the question of what keeps a player engaged enough to survive for 30 minutes, let alone take things all the way to the end. That's the question this video will be trying to answer. I'll begin by narrating the journey from my first attempt at the game to the first time I survived 30 minutes. After that, I'll talk about the steps I needed to take to reach the final boss, with some thoughts on time, my favorite weapons, and the progression of player power sprinkled in, leading to a discussion of why I kept playing after I stopped recording footage. Wondering if the compulsion to complete the game's list of unlocks was all that kept me going. If you haven't played Vampire Survivors and worry about spoilers, I will be showing footage and discussing characters, bosses, levels, and weapons from later on in the game. Finally, a word of caution. If you have photosensitivity issues, a lot of my footage contains flashing lights and effects, so please be careful. With all that out of the way, it's time to tell you a story about my journey through this little indie game you may have heard of called Vampire Survivors. My first goal was to survive for 30 minutes. This took close to 6 hours of play. When the game starts, the weapon and character selection is minuscule, and most importantly, you don't know what you're doing. For a game where the only gameplay is moving the character through the level and making decisions on upgrade screens, the first few games seem unfairly complex. Like the player is missing out on crucial information, or that the heart of the game is earning enough money to power up through the shop. I think that's partially true, but it's a loop that reinforces itself. The better you do in-game, choosing the right weapons for your character and the stage you play, the further you'll get, the more weapons, characters, and stages you'll unlock, and the more upgrades you'll be able to purchase in the shop, which will lead to longer games, better decisions, and continuing this process. When I talked about a sense of progression in this version of the game that wasn't there when I played back in early access, I'm mainly talking about the relics. I unlocked the library after 3 attempts of the Mad Garden. Upon selecting it, I noticed there was a relic listed, and upon entering the stage, there was a green arrow enticing me to follow it. I ignored the swarming hordes, following the siren song of this green arrow. Eventually I found it, and it was a book of weapon evolution recipes. This blew open the game for me. Back in early access, I had heard about weapon evolutions when trying to work out how to get better at the game. If you level up a weapon to its maximum and have the right item in your inventory, opening a chest dropped by a boss monster will trigger a weapon evolution. It felt like these were the trick to surviving 30 minutes, and now the game was giving me access to these important evolutionary secrets. Of course, it's still easier to look up what items you need for a weapon evolution online. When I first got the grimoire, it revealed a few evolutions, but it was still up to me to experiment. I didn't mind, as it was fun filling my inventory with 6 items that I hadn't worked out an evolution for, and seeing if anything happened when I got to max level with a weapon. As the game went on, I started using the wikis for weapon evolutions to make sure I wasn't making an error and wasting a run. This wasn't until I started surviving the whole 30 minutes though, so I'm getting ahead of myself. I unlocked level 3, the dairy, and the relics here were a bestiary and a map on the pause screen. This added another level of understanding, as I could see that each stage had items just hanging out in the game world. I wondered if this was a hint towards which weapons were best for each stage based off the items needed for weapon evolutions. I also noticed the giant question mark, but when I first made my way over, it was surrounded by enemies that were too high level for me. I figured I needed at least 1 or 2 weapon evolutions to make my way there, but the question I had was when. So let's talk about the importance of time. In the Mad Garden, every 5 minutes a ring of flowers will encircle the player, trapping them in an arena with some higher level creatures and a mantis boss. I think it's best to think of the difficulty of a vampire survivor's level in terms of time. Once I made it to minute 15, I found making it to minute 20 wasn't too difficult, but after minute 20, if I wasn't set up to take things to the end of the game, I would get swarmed. This led to a theory that minute 15 is the best time to start making my way towards the question mark, and perhaps the relics, as future relics weren't as easy to beeline at the start of a run. Weapon evolutions unlock at level 10, so by 15, I felt I should at least have 1 evolution, if not a couple. Basically, the earlier I selected what weapons and items I wanted, and which evolutions to work towards, surviving the 30 minutes would be all but guaranteed. And eventually, I got there. I survived my first 30 minutes, and then in the same session, I did it again. Hold your applause, please. Similar to how there's a point in any level when it seems like a win will be guaranteed, once the player works out how to survive the time limit, they can easily do it again. Part of my initial success was playing a new character. Part of it was the amount of unlocked weapons and items I now had at my disposal. Part of it was all the upgrades I'd purchased at the power-up shop. And part of it was the confidence I gained working out how the game worked. On the run I first survived, I had 5 weapon evolutions. It would take a while before I was able to activate all 6, because that requires some additional knowledge in regards to planning at the start of a run. But thanks to all these factors, I had survived, and I could do it more than once. So now, the question forming in my head was, what now? Yes, in the intro I talked about how there's a final boss, but I didn't know that at the time. I wondered if I was done with Vampire Survivors. Was my only goal to survive 30 minutes? Was I now supposed to do it with every character on every level, slowly making my way through the remaining unlocks until there were no new secrets to uncover? Yes and no. I looked it up online, and the internet told me that once a player collects all the relics, a special stage will unlock, leading to a credits screen. There's my goal. I would reach that credits screen. I mean, that's how most games work, right? The game is finished once you reach the credits. What I didn't understand was how many steps there would be between this moment and finally finishing the game. 14 more hours of gameplay, and more than once I thought, well, surely that was the end, right? Only to be wrong. This happened at least 3 times. Step 1. Obtain all the relics. I could survive 30 minutes, and I had a better understanding of how to build my character during a run, not to mention having more characters to select from. Some of them having powerful special abilities, such as Pagnala gaining 1% might with each level. Might is basically damage output, so you can see how having that rise with each new trip to the level up screen can be of assistance. During this time, I got to play with new weapons thanks to characters like Pagnala, Popia, and Giovanna. Unlocking these weapons for use on the level up screen made future runs a lot easier, and by this point, I had evolved most of the weapons available, gaining a greater idea of which weapons synergized well and which I just liked. Okay, Dave's top 5 Vampire Survivors weapons. Number 5, Celestial Dusting. I like the idea of farting flowers of death. Number 4, Fiera del Tufalo and 8 the Sparrow. Like their evolution, I can't have one of these pistols on my list without the other. And what can I say? I just like being a whirling dervish of bullets. Number 3, the Pentagram. Originally, I thought this was an evil weapon, but when I finally got over myself and unlocked its evolution, I realized its greatness. Gem explosion, baby! Number 2, King Bible. Alongside the garlic, this is an early favorite of most players as it keeps enemies at bay. I'll usually save a weapon slot for it in most runs, unless I want to shake things up. And number 1, Song of Mana. Even more of a barrier, and a must when playing the library stage. Once it's always on, you're a vertical do not enter sign. Of course, there's not really a weapon I dislike, not even Corello or Laraba, as they all have utility, either in their normal or evolved forms. And besides, I don't start every run looking for my top 5. The decisions are based on the character I've chosen, their starting weapon, the stage I'm playing, and what weapons show up on the level up screen. It helps keep each run at least a little fresh once I've learned how to properly build my character. Speaking of the right build, as I was making my way towards relic acquisition, I started to form ideas about the right way to play the game. How it might be best to only collect 3 to 4 weapons initially, supplement them with their evolution items, sure, but then make room for the items I feel greatly assist any run, like the duplicator or the empty tome. There's a bonus stage called Moonglow that has every item just sitting there, easily accessible. I made a mistake in one run of collecting everything. I wasn't able to level up my weapons because the level up screen was taken up by all the items in my inventory. That's why I like to keep my initial selection low. Not only does it allow me to level up what I already have, but it gives me more chances for the weapons and items I want to appear. As the more I unlock, the greater the selection the game's randomizer has to pull from, muddying my level up plans by not having that weapon or item I want ever show up. Thank goodness for the reroll, am I right? After collecting all the relics, it was on to step 2, which is uncovering more relics. A secret ending to the Moonglow stage leads to an angelic corridor, leading to yet another relic. This relic opened up a boss in the Capella Magna stage, where you defeat all the Reapers, and then they Captain Planet into a Super Reaper. Beating this boss gave me, you guessed it, another relic. Limit breaks, the ability to level up weapons past their max level, which is an amazing addition if you just want to let loose and show off your power in Endless mode. Speaking of Endless mode, the 2 final relics are in yet another secret stage that beating the Super Reaper opened up, Eudaimonia. This was the level that the internet told me led to the credits section, and it did. I just had to play a game in both Inverse and Endless mode before the final boss showed itself. But before the final boss, I want to talk about the Reaper. The whole game, this jackass has swooped in at the end of the time limit, ruining my fun. In the Capella Magna stage, you take out all the different colored Reapers and wail on them when they team up. I thought the Super Reaper would be the end of it, but no. Once you defeat it, a White Reaper takes over slaughtering duty. It's one of the appeals of Endless mode. No Reaper to contend with. The stage just resets with harder versions of the same swarms. It'd be great to finally have dominion over death, and that relic I found in the Angelic Corridor allowed me just this opportunity. It unlocks the silver and gold bracelet and the left and right Metaglio signs. These are the evolution items for the Laurel and the Clock Lancet, the weapons that I ignored even more than the pentagram for most of my play. The trick with the bracelets and signs is that both need to be leveled to max before the evolution takes place, and each has 9 levels. To top it off, one half of these items buffs you, and the other half buffs the enemies. This isn't the first time I've had to contend with a power-up that powers up the enemies, as the evolution item for Song of Mana is the Skull O Maniac, and levels of Curse are able to be purchased in the power-up shop. I ignored this for the longest time, because why would I want to make the game harder for myself? Because increased enemy quantity means more enemies to kill, which means more experience, allowing quicker level ups. It allows weapons to gain the power they need even earlier, and once I realized this, I rationalized that since I already knew how to survive the game, this increase in enemy speed and health wasn't going to hurt. And it didn't. Sure, it makes the start of each run more precarious depending on the character, but ultimately it's a way for the player to gain more power. And this is why the evolution of the Clock Lancet and Laurel was left till the end of the game. It gives you the power to kill the Reaper. Thanks to the Infinite Corridor and the Crimson Shroud evolutions, the Reaper went down. But that white bastard reared its ugly head again. The White Reaper showed up in the fight against the final boss as well. The first time it appeared and killed me, I was shocked. But as I had the power to revive, I was able to continue, as long as it didn't appear again. And it appeared again. This time, however, I gained a helping hand. At certain milestones through the game, these disembodied hands have been applauding me, cheering me on. The final boss is called the Director, but based on the power of the hands, overwriting the power of the White Reaper, and then showering me with riches once the boss fight is done, I'd say these hands are the true director of the game. The one who's wanted me to succeed this whole time, and thanks to their help, I reached the credit screen. I beat Vampire Survivors. But I haven't stopped playing Vampire Survivors, and I'm wondering why. The game kind of got stale around halfway through my playtime. 30 minutes can be a long time to see a bunch of flashing effects and numbers popping off everywhere. I don't have photosensitivity issues, and even I felt tired in my eyes and brain after each successful run. I was thankful for the level ups and treasure chest drops because they were always an audio-visual reprieve. Regardless of the overstimulation, the game itself is less exciting once solved. I worked out how to survive around hour 6, and while there were many more hours of enjoyable experimentation with stages, weapons, characters, evolutions, and secrets, the gameplay itself became the most boring part. And the more I played, the better I got at making the right decisions to keep the enemies off me minute after minute, making the core gameplay even duller. But I'm still playing, and despite what I just said, the game is still exciting. Why? Well, I think there are two answers. The first is the randomizer I mentioned earlier. It's become known that the creator of Vampire Survivors, Luca Galante, worked as a developer for a gambling company. With the chests full of random unlocks, the gems to collect, and the joyous cacophony that accompanies each new increase in power, the influence is noticeable. However, it's these random elements that keep each run exciting even when the challenge is gone. Each treasure chest will give 1 upgrade, but there is a small chance for it to give 3 and an even smaller chance to give 5. Each of these is accompanied by more bombast, and that's not even the most explosive and exciting random element. That honor goes to the red gems. Red gems give more EXP than turquoise or blue gems, and sometimes when I collect a red gem, I will receive what I can only describe as a level explosion. Level after level after level after level. I swear I've had 10 in a row. Before writing this paragraph, I wanted to understand how it worked, to see if, like the chests, there was a small chance to hit a jackpot. It turns out that's not really the case. The following information is from the internet, so may not be correct, but I'm going to mention it anyway. To prevent slowdown or crashing, there's a limit of 400 gems allowed in the game at a time. Once that limit is hit, a red gem will appear, and all future gems will pool in this red gem. So depending what minute of the game the player is in, and when they collect the red gem, the XP they receive can fluctuate wildly. Not as random as the chests, but boy does it feel that way when you strike it big. And while these moments are full of excitement, and there's still joy in watching my selection of weapons obliterate all who cross my path, the base game no longer holds the same pull. I mean, I got more than my money's worth, so I'm not sad about it. But yet I'm still playing. The treadmill of unlocks is exciting because new characters and weapons add much needed variety to the gameplay. But since I've beaten the game, unlocks are all it has left. And in the middle of finishing this script, I finally completed the unlock list and the secrets to boot. All that's left is to purchase the 2 pieces of DLC, opening up a new series of locks to un. I think I'll purchase it once this video's out. Now the pull of the unlocks is strange because I've never had much interest in achievements. A list of arbitrary tasks to complete once a game is done holds no sway over me because I always have dozens of new games to move on to. Achievements have always felt like busy work. That's what baffles me about Vampire Survivors. Even when the core loop of powering up in the shop is done, even after the game is over, I still find myself wanting to complete the list, and I did. Now, a lot of the unlocks did feel like busy work, but despite saying that the gameplay wore out its welcome once I knew what I was doing, I think I'm still drawn to the joy and bombast of playing a round of Vampire Survivors. At this late stage, the enemy swarms surround me thick as carpet, and there's still fun in selecting what weapons and items I want to try and wipe them all out with, especially using some of the late game characters like Red Death or Queen Sigma. To put it another way, I still like making the numbers go up, and I still succumb to the thrill of a chest or red gem jackpot. When I started writing this script, I was planning on discussing when Vampire Survivors shifted from enjoyable gameplay into a treadmill of unlocks. But now that I reflect on my time playing the game, and that I'm still continuing to play it, I can see that the gameplay itself is still enjoyable. The reason I think I convinced myself it wasn't is in order to complete all the unlocks, I was using game modes like Hurry and Endless to make my way through the list as quickly as possible, no longer engaging in said gameplay. Also, I bought into the idea that because the core gameplay is so simplistic, the shine had to wear off eventually. I think that the reason there are so many unlocks and additions is because developer Luca Galante realizes that you can only push such a simple concept so far. But think how far the concept has been pushed. Even in its early stages, Vampire Survivors captured everyone's imagination, and it's still attracting new fans. It feels like the unlocks were the only way to make the game bigger, as adding more base mechanics, a story, or a straightforward campaign would have ruined its simplicity, its mystery, and thus its charm. And I've come to the realization that I wouldn't be interested in completing these unlocks if it didn't add something worthwhile to these same base mechanics that I still enjoy interacting with. It could have done with more vampires though. Thanks for watching. Hey folks, and welcome to the end of the video. Thanks for sticking around. Now, if you hear any birds, you'll have to excuse them. Those ones. It is spring, so I have this giant tree outside my window here, and because it's in bloom, so what that means is during the day, all the birds are there to feast and to squawk and to carry on, and then at night, all the flying foxes come to feast and squawk and carry on. It makes it very hard to find time to record audio during spring, but also to sleep, but I'm going to soldier on the best I can. I thought to start off with, we'd begin with the voting. Usually I leave this till a little later, but why not just get it out of the way? For those of you who voted on the critique game last time, you'll remember that the two games that were not chosen were Red Dead Redemption and Tunic. Now the third game was chosen by my lovely patrons over at Patreon. You can sign up for $3 a month, and not only will you be able to choose the next game in the poll, but you also get monthly updates and early access to these wonderful videos. Also, if you want to donate a little more, I have a higher tier where I will thank you individually at the end of these videos. But to the game they picked. So we've got Red Dead Redemption, we've got Tunic, and finally, drumroll, we've got Disco Elysium. So those are the three games to pick. The poll will be linked in a pinned comment under this video. It will be up for about 3 days after the video goes live, and then I will post the results in said poll, and then I'll work on the video. Hooray! Last time in the Civ 6 video, I decided to try something new in this space where I talk about what I call deleted scenes, ideas for the critique that either I couldn't find a place to put them in, or the direction that the critique took turned out to be a different path from these thoughts that I had when thinking about what I wanted to write about. One of the interesting ones I'd like to start with is actually kind of the conclusion of the whole video. How it's not the unlocks themselves, but that the game is still quite enjoyable to play even at this late stage. As an anecdote, some of the footage in the video I had to go and get as I was editing it because it featured things that happened in between when I finished the game and when I started video editing, which was quite a few weeks, and in that time I completed the unlocks list and the secrets list, and I was obsessed with the game. I just plowed through everything. So the funny thing about getting that footage is usually I only needed certain aspects of the footage, like when I did my top 5 weapons, I would go in and record just until I got the weapon evolved, and then I could show off what the evolved weapon could do, and then I would stop playing. Or later on, when I wanted to showcase characters such as Red Death or Queen Sigma, I only needed, a few minutes. I wanted to show what they could do, but then as I was playing, I got so hooked into the game itself that I had to kind of force myself to quit and stop the video and go back to editing. Even at this late stage, like the power curve of the game is completely ended for me. I can pretty much succeed with any combination of weapons, with any character. Mostly, basically I know what I'm doing. And yet, when I was starting these games just to get certain things on camera, like the weapons I was picking, the items I was picking, the obliteration of the enemies was all still so exciting, and I wanted to keep continuing and see how it would end up. Now, an early note I wrote when I was thinking about the direction maybe I'd like to take the script in was the idea of design through subtraction. The idea that Vampire Survivors is, I guess, part bullet hell, part twin stick shooter, but it's one of those games where what makes it special is that Luca Galante decided to take away the player's ability to fire. There is no offense that the player has control over. And I found that perhaps worth discussing. Of course, 2 things made me leave it behind. The first is that in my research phase, I watched the no-clip documentary about the making of Vampire Survivors, and in it, it talks about how Vampire Survivors was influenced by a mobile game that basically had the same idea, just wasn't as fully formed or polished. But then when I really got to think about it, so I'm not a big fan of the shoot 'em up genre. I'm getting a crash course in them because in my NES video, it turns out they're becoming more and more popular, so I'm playing more and more of them. But over the years, I've tried Ikaruga and Cinemora, and I think one called Crimson Clover I really liked. So I've had a smattering of the genre, but one thing I'm pretty sure of is that there are bullet hell shoot 'em up games out there where the firing is automatic. The game is so focused on the ability of the player to dodge and I guess get the right weapon layouts that they decided that let's just, they're going to be holding the button anyway. Let's just take that pressure off. And once you do that, I guess you can be a lot more devious in just what you assault the player with. So yes, it's not that Vampire Survivors is a brand new idea, but I think you'll all agree, at least after watching this video, that I do believe it's quite well executed. And that's it for another video. I would love to know what you thought of this one. Please tell me in the comments. Please don't forget to vote on what game you'd like to see me cover next. If you love what I do here, why not head on over to my Patreon and see if you'd like to become a member. So until next time, I hope you're all enjoying your gaming, you're staying safe, you're staying well, and I hope you're all having a wonderful day.